2026 Summit. Closing down the show with some gentlemen that I'm honored to get to know over the past 2 years. Scott, Schnitzel, Ryan, and Eco to talk about the 256 Foundation that was founded by Econoalchemist and Rod Rudy of Bitcoin Park, aiming to dismantle the proprietary mining empire. Here you are, sirs.
Thanks, Tyler. Yeah, you bet. Can we get a round of applause for the guys that run this space? You guys have done an amazing job. I love just seeing this community blossom, and hats off to Tyler and Dylan and everyone else working behind the scenes to bring this all together. I missed it last year. I still have FOMO about that, and I'm glad I could be here this year. So thank you for everything you're doing. You may have heard the 256 Foundation mentioned a couple of times throughout the talks today and yesterday. I co-found that foundation with the mission to dismantle the proprietary mining empire. We are a 501c3 public charity that raises money to fund developers like Scott, Schnitzel, and Ryan. And we have one other developer, Jungly, who is, he couldn't be here this week. But let's talk about the backdrop here and why the 256 Foundation came into existence. You know, Rod and I, when we found that the 256 Foundation, we were really frustrated with the direction we were seeing Bitcoin mining going. And I think closed source Bitcoin mining products, solutions, software, hardware was really contributing to a lot of fundamentally dysfunctional problems in the Bitcoin ecosystem at large that actually undermined the properties that make Bitcoin valuable to the way I see it, such as censorship resistance and permissionless. So just to kind of set the backdrop here, like, let's get some input from you guys. What sort of problems were created because of closed source mining solutions?
I would take it back to Bitcoin in general, right? We have, when Bitcoin was created, when Satoshi, in the first public announcement of Bitcoin, he said, I've developed a new open source peer-to-peer currency, right? And this was solving a lot of the problems that came with closed source money, which we call fiat, right? So this is like an intrinsic part of Bitcoin, this open source part of it, right? You cannot have decentralization, another very important part of Bitcoin, without it being open source, right? If it's closed source, if it's proprietary, it's controlled by some entity. They can dictate how it works. They can dictate who can use it, who can't use it. Open source, you know, makes it decentralized, and it breaks that whole paradigm. So it's an incredibly important part of Bitcoin and what makes Bitcoin work. And so now we have Bitcoin mining, which, you know, secures Bitcoin. Bitcoin mining is an incredibly important part of Bitcoin. And so that also needs to be open source so that it can be decentralized, so that it can secure decentralized freedom money. When Bitcoin mining, you know, first started, it was open source, right? It was a part of Satoshi's first implementation of Bitcoin. You know, that's how we got to where we are here today, talking about Bitcoin and talking about all the amazing properties of Bitcoin mining and heat reuse, is because it was open and people could work on it and people could develop it in a decentralized way. With that, you know, with the advent of ASICs over a decade ago, Bitcoin mining became closed source. It became proprietary, and it coalesced on basically one large manufacturer who makes the chips, that makes the hardware, makes the firmware, and it also runs the largest pool. Honestly, Bitmain is a proven sketchy actor. They've done a number of sketchy things in the past. This is not a good organization to be entirely centralized on, much less it's not going to be centralized at all. So, you know, in order to secure this freedom money, we need to have the ability to inspect. We need to audit how these machines run. We need to be able to develop new features to keep Bitcoin permissionless and the essential freedom money that everyone needs. And we can do better with mining. I mean, that's kind of what we're here at this event talking about, is amazing new applications of mining. Like we know that it's an amazing generator of heat, right? It's a perfect 100% efficient heat generator, right? But the whole sort of mission there, I think, is being held back by the fact that there's only a couple manufacturers of these machines, and they're not targeting this market. So, being open source and letting other people get in and build these machines is going to enable the future of Bitcoin mining, which is securing the Bitcoin mining network. That's my rant.
Ryan, Schnitzel, you guys.
I mean, I was just sick at banging my head against these firmwares of these Bitcoin miners, not knowing what they're doing, updating the firmware, and then the API changed. And like, you buy the same version of miner and it has a different API, and it's just like, and then, yeah, the fact that I cannot modify them in the way that I want to modify them, right? Bitcoin is supposed to be open source. For me, open source is I'm able to open it up, look at it, modify it, change it what I want. And I wanted to build water heaters, space heaters, I wanted to build hash tops. And these companies prevented me from doing it. And not only preventing me, I felt like they're actively working against me. And so, yeah, when the whole idea of like, we need to build this open source, it was like, of course, we need to do this, but it felt like this impossible thing, right? I mean, you kind of like memed it into existence, like in a podcast that once a week I listened to, and I said like, hell yes, let's build it. And then at one point, you created the foundation, which was like also a crazy thing already. And then we found this block, which suddenly like all the roadblocks were gone. And a year ago, I was on stage here and saying like, we're gonna build it. And a year later, and it's freaking crazy that it's only a year, you can go upstairs and it's running. It's a completely open source miner, firmware, hardware, software. And I cannot tell you how exciting. Like, I think it's not just us that build it, it's also you that encourage us from doing it, right? All the things that people build with BitX is so inspiring. All the different versions, or like everything, like other, like people coming up to me and saying like, hey, I watched your video and I built now my own thing. That's what keeps us going, because if we build the hardware and the software and the firmware, I don't know what's gonna happen, but I'm very sure that in just a couple of years, if anybody buys a bottled water heater, a coffee machine, or anything else that produces heat, and there's no Bitcoin miner in there, like people will not accept this anymore. That's the future that I'm looking forward. And if you would ask me a year ago how long this is gonna take, maybe I would have said 20 to 30 years. If you ask me now, maybe 5 to 10. So we'll see where we are next year. But it's extremely exciting because the space is moving extremely fast forward. And I think, yeah, that's what keeps me going, because it's crazy how fast and how it's possible. And honestly, that's possible because of all of you. And I don't know who decided that a year ago we should win this, or we should find this block. Maybe Satoshi, wherever he, she, they is, helped. I don't know how this works, but the network wanted this to happen, and it's happening. So that's really cool.
Yeah, I was in the audience here last year for the first one, which was in between the time the 256 Foundation found the block and wanted grant proposals. And I was in the audience here. I hadn't been chosen yet, but I was just so stoked, everything we talked about last year, seeing all the demos when they were in the kitchen last year. I think from like somewhere over there in the audience, I kept firing off an email or two to Eco or Rod or whatever. I'm like, we got to do this. They need us to build this. Like, because, I think several times there was a call from the stage for like, what we need next is software we can modify. I'm so impressed by everything that everyone has built with black boxes of proprietary software. And I just remember walking through those demos thinking, man, all they need is some unlock here, and that's, emailing these guys. This is what we're gonna do. You guys all got to come out to the summit next year. This is our audience. This is who we're building for. I'm stoked that we're doing it.
So a couple of things from what the panelists just said that I want to highlight. One is that the Bitcoin protocol itself is open source, and the nodes are open source. Many of the applications built on top of the protocol are open source. But then when it came to mining, everyone just started tolerating these closed source solutions, and it led to a lot of problems. And like Scott was mentioning, a lot of those problems were controlled by one Chinese company called Bitmain, who had control over the hardware and the firmware, and they've done some sketchy things in the past with that control that put the Bitcoin network at a disadvantage. And so, and I'd even go as far as to argue that Bitmain's closed and proprietary control is what led to the advent of full pay per share pools and the centralization around the Bitcoin mining pools, and a vast majority of all the Bitcoin mining rewards being controlled by a single custodian. So the network effects of that centralization ripple throughout the entire ecosystem and cause instability, in my opinion. And so we recognized that. We said there needs to be open source solutions, and the path forward that we saw was the entire Bitcoin mining stack needs to be open source. If it's open, it can be verified, anyone can build on it, anyone can inspect it, anyone can do this. And we're hitting roadblock after roadblock, and we're in an antagonistic relationship with the largest producer of Bitcoin mining hardware. And that's just not an environment where you can build a business or where you can really make a network thrive that's supposed to be trustless. So we decided we're going to build a hashboard, a control board, firmware, and a mining pool. And those became the 4 core projects of the 256 Foundation. So let's dive into each of those, because each of you are the lead developer for one of those projects. And just tell us about what that project is and why it's significant.
The project that I've been working on is called Ember One. That's the hashboard part of the whole stack that the 256 Foundation is making. It's a 100-watt hashboard, right? Normally the hashboards in Antminers, basically all the industrial miners, are 1,000 watts. There's 3 of them. So this is a much smaller version of that. Via the BitAxe project, I've gained a lot of experience in how to use these chips, and it was very cool to put those learnings, that knowledge, towards making a slightly bigger one. One of the cool things about this project, though, is it's fully open source, of course. It serves as a reference design, right? If you want to make a bigger miner, right, bigger than the BitAxe, to actually get some heat out of it, this serves as a reference design that you can take, like how to interface mechanically, electrically, protocol-wise with these chips, so that you can build these bigger miners. And of course, it's optimized to work with the rest of the 256 Foundation stack. I think we've got some cool advancements there. That hashboard connects over USB, so it's fairly agnostic to what sort of control board you use. It's designed to be used, I think, which is kind of unlike all the rest of the hashboards. It's designed to be built upon. It's designed to be improved upon. It's pretty slick. Right now, the first version we're using Bitmain chips from the S19J Pro. Big goal of mine is to get off of using Bitmain chips. So we have another version planned with the Intel chips, and then another version planned, hopefully, with the block chips after that. But the idea is that this is a platform that we can, put new chips on to support new ASIC manufacturers as they're coming along, and then provide reference designs for people who are building systems, and then, of course, incorporating these amazing projects.
Sorry, one thing real quick. That's an important point to highlight. Is the 256 Foundation is not in business to produce products and sell them. We're open sourcing the designs so that other people can build businesses on top of open source information that we're creating.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really important point, and I know a lot of the other panels have been talking about this, but I just want to touch on it again. Is, if we're trying to make hashrate heaters, you cannot go to market by taking a Bitmain hashboard and putting it in there. I'm sorry, that's just not going to scale. You know, there's going to be problems with safety certifications when they're like, how does this thing work? And you're like, I don't know, like someone else makes it. And then you can't count on just like essentially getting these out of the dumpster and putting them into your project. So we really think that, you know, these are building blocks for building real products to tackle all these amazing opportunities.
Yeah, so I'm building the control board called the Libre Board. So the idea is like with a regular miner that you have individual hashboards, and these hashboards you connect to one control board. The control board will run the firmware, which basically means it will be the part that connects to the pool and to the internet that finds all the work and sends it back. Now the problem is we have control boards today already. Every miner today has a little control board with a Linux distribution, by the way, a horribly old, not security patch Linux distribution, but that's for another topic. But then, yeah, we want to interface with them, but you maybe want to connect a temperature sensor, a flow sensor, you maybe want to have a display and things like that, and none of them allow you to do this. So what the Libre Board is basically a replacement for that, where you control or you connect your hashboards, and it's based on a Raspberry Pi, not a normal Raspberry Pi, but a compute module, so it's a clicky thing you put on it. And the really cool thing is you can choose from different powerfulnesses of compute modules. So there's a 1 gigabyte version that you maybe just run the firmware, or if you want to go full bore, you can buy a 16 gigabyte version, and you can run a full node, a Bitcoin full node on it. Because the Libre Board also has an SSD connection, so you can run a full Bitcoin node, you can run a pool, you can even install Home Assistant that can talk to it. And because it's Raspberry Pi, there is tons of so-called hats which you can connect on top of it. There's also a new thingy called Quick, which is basically a standardized temperature sensor thingy, or a flow sensor, or a motor controller, or my world, or my goal is to have a pyrotechnical version. That basically, whenever you find a block, I don't know, you can decide what you want to do. But right, but that's the idea, that all is in one. Because if you talk to any of these systems that are up there or installed, they have the control boards of the miner, and then they have a secondary central control board that somehow tries to talk to these, right? And if I build a big installation with, let's say, 4 miners, I basically have one control board that talks to 4 other control boards that talks to 3 hash boards. And this is completely stupid. Like, these are not how systems should be built. We should be able to connect all these 12 hash boards directly to one control board. And that control board then can do things like we cannot do today, like turning on and off one single hash board. Like, what a crazy idea that is, right? And so what is also really cool, what Scott built, is not only can we now connect to the control board, can we connect the Ember Ones, but we now also reverse engineered all the ribbon cable communication, so you will be able to connect a hashboard, like an S19J Pro hashboard, directly to the control board on Libre Board. So for like a big system with 12 miners, you will 12 hashboards, you will have, in Mujina, you will have 12 hashboards, and you can control them individually, and there's no in-between thingy anymore. And because it is USB, you can literally connect it to your computer. So if you don't want to use the Libre Board, don't use it. Like, I'm even thinking about like who else has a USB connection? Well, your phone. So if we can compile Mujina to run on a cheap Android phone that already has a GPS and a cell phone connection and a Wi-Fi, and so now you have your miner. Like the fact that it's USB-C, the next thing is, like, people come to me and say, on the Libre Board, it has only 4 connectors, but I want to connect 12. And it's like, have you heard of a USB-C hub? Like, it's USB, right? So we're trying to use the things that we already use in the regular world, put them on, and I've spent a lot of time talking to you to understand what should go on the Libre Board, but like with the Ember One, it's just a stepping stone. It's completely open source. If you don't like the HDMI that is on it, throw it away. If you want 20 Ethernet ports for whatever reason, you can put 20 ports on it. So it's open source. So the first version is online. We have it built. It's running up there. But this will not be the last. So either go to the GitHub repository, tell us what you need, talk to me, or build it yourself. Pull requests welcome.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I wanted to highlight something you touched on, which was the standardness that we're trying to bring into the control board, because if anyone's tried like doing anything funky with like home heating with a like Bitmain miner, it's just a complete nightmare. But we're trying to make, use these standards like USB-C so that the control board can be integrated with these systems and talk to your switches and your relays and communicate over Wi-Fi, and standards are great for that. So,
Like, you can connect anything to a Raspberry Pi. People have connected anything and everything to a Raspberry Pi. Now your control board that controls your miner has a Raspberry Pi on there. Like, you think about, for your hash rate heated hot tub, right? It can have a little screen with the temperature and the up-down buttons right on your control board, dialed in with the firmware that's controlling the miners, right? You don't have to have that be a separate piece anymore. It's kind of mind-blowing, like how easily you can add these types of things to a control board like this.
You can connect cameras to it. So you point your camera to the miner. So if the miner catches on fire, it turns it off. Like, whatever you want to do. Like that. Well, that's the pyrotechnics version. No, but that's the thing, right? There's so much. Like, go and Google Raspberry Pi hats. There's things that people build. It's like absolutely crazy, and now you can connect hashboards to them. So please, think about what you could build with this, and it's here. We're not just envisioning stuff here. It's literally there.
And Mujina is the software layer. So if you don't realize how this works, it's the software's job to take all the great ideas they brainstorm and put into the hardware and actually make it work. So that's fun.
That's how it works. Basically, Scott and I come up with great ideas and tell Ryan to just build it.
So that dictates a lot about how Mujina is organized. So we built it from scratch with the awareness that coming was like, we want to just be able to hot plug any hashboard anytime over USB, and it's just going to take it into the system and work. Numerous other features, are just dictated by what the hardware is trying to make available. So Mujina is designed to run on Linux. So any Linux control board, any Linux system. I do a lot of development from my laptop. The system you see upstairs is actually running on Libre Board, which is a Raspberry Pi based system. But really, any Linux system is where Mujina is designed to run. And I guess Mujina is a little bit different than some of the other 256 projects in that it's not merely meant as a reference design or a stepping stone. It's actually meant to be the software project that everyone is able to take and run on their custom devices also. So you don't need to take Mujina and totally fork it off in your own direction and do your own things just to get it running on your hardware. Our intention is to build in support and just have Mujina keep snowballing and growing into something that supports every ASIC chip, every hashboard, build in generic features that cover every scenario. So what that software does is, of course, manage the hardware. So, manage the ASIC chips to actually mine the jobs. It also, this is the software that talks to the pool and gets the work or other sources of work. And it also, the main interface in Mujina is to provide an API for other software to access and control things. So
APIs, what the hell?
Yeah, I mean, that is, the interface it's designed to be programmatically used from other software, because anything you build, like the architecture of this sous vide heater demonstration we have upstairs, it's multiple layers. There's Mujina running on there, but I also have another program running on top that actually sits on Libre Board next to Mujina, reads the temperature sensors, and talks to Mujina's API in order to control the hash rate and everything that's going on to control to a certain temperature in the water. So that's not something I actually had to build into Mujina. That's another an application layer of software that is doing the application-specific stuff for the device and talking using Mujina's generic API interfaces. So that's, and that is meant to be a project, an open project to which people continually contribute. I often say we mean it to be the Linux kernel project of Bitcoin mining. So,
And I think one of the important things, right, today, if we want a specific feature of a firmware, let's say I have my miners, and I want them to turn on based on the weather tomorrow, whatever. Like, if you cannot go to the existing firmware and just plug in the API of the weather tomorrow, like, you're going to have to build a separate system that needs to build this. But now, because this is open source, you can literally take your vibe coding tool and saying, hey, here is the source code. Can you please update this firmware so I can talk directly to this API? So every single feature that you ever imagined a firmware to do, you can now build it. You don't need to wait for anybody. You don't need to hope that somebody agrees with you. You can just take the code, and you don't even need to be able to code anymore since 6 months ago. And you can build it and you can do it. So that's what I'm extremely excited about, because like all of us have different requirements, and what we tried is to take the firmware that some person or a group of people built that doesn't understand you, that doesn't actually has your interest, and now we can do it ourselves.
And I think that's a really important point, right? All of the firmware that currently exists for miners is designed for those machines, which are designed for one use and one use only, which is running in a data center connected to a grid 24/7, right? So, you know, they have those firmware, you know, they have their customers, right? And it's those big miners, and so they don't add the features that we all need, right? And so kind of the point with Mujina is that you can add your features that you need, right? You have specific requirements, you have needs to make this product work. Here's a firmware where you can actually add it, right? As opposed to trying to get it out of someone where you're just not the target market.
Every few months, the 256 Foundation will hold a fundraising event where we encourage miners to point hashrate toward the 256 Foundation so that we can solo mine a Bitcoin block and raise money for the foundation that way. It's kind of a crazy idea. It was very novel a year ago when we did it the first time, and against all odds, it worked. And we solo mined block 881423. Yep, still got it. And that's how we bootstrapped the foundation. And so since then, one of the projects that we built was HydraPool. And the last fundraiser we did, the last two fundraisers we did, we ran on HydraPool. And even though Jungly can't be here this week, can you guys inform the audience about what HydraPool is and how that works?
Okay. Yeah, so we wanted an open source pool that can do solo mining, but also PPLNS. And the first approach actually Jungly used CK Pool because it's an existing open source pool. However, we realized quite fast that it's built in C, which most people don't speak or don't understand anymore. And unfortunately, it's not very well documented because it's basically one person that built it for themselves, like unfortunately a lot of software out there. And so he decided to completely ditch that and build it up from scratch. So it's now built in Rust, it's properly documented. And yeah, we ran it. We had up to 1 exahash pointed to it. And it basically, again, it's the building block that you can build stuff on top of it. So there are discussions, right, to connect it to HashPool or like other payout schemes and things like that. We want to make sure that you can run this anywhere. Like you can run it on your miner itself. If you want to solo mine, why don't the miner also runs the Bitcoin node and the pool and everything by themselves? If you have a small community and you want to run a pool, you can run it there. There's also discussions around like pool aggregation and all this stuff that is out there. So it works. We run it ourselves. We know other people are running it. And I think now is the time to hear from you what else you could imagine. What is the perfect pool software? What kind of interfaces does it have? What kind of dashboard does it have? What kind of APIs does it have? But one of the important things is what we just talked in the panel before, is to actually validate the shares, right? That you can go to the pool, there's an API, and you can validate that the shares that you actually sent up there have been counted, and the payout that you received when you finally found a block is actually what you're supposed to get. Because again, don't trust, verify. And so that's what HydraPool is going to do.
I think there's a lot of exciting opportunity in pool development, right? There's a lot of interesting ideas coming out. A lot of people's like, you know, I want to try this payout mechanism. I want to try this share validation mechanism. I want to try like different payout schemes, right? We have VMPRC wants to try, self-custodial shares, right? I think HydraPool is sort of this base layer. You don't have to suffer through implementing Stratum v1 just to like try out your new idea, right? So this is hopefully a platform that people can build on and try out these ideas, rather and move, the whole sort of mining pool market forward, I think.
And the other thing is, right, I look at a lot of the big miners, and except Marapool or Marathon, everybody uses Foundry, like the US. I don't understand that. Like, yes, maybe when ZK Pool was there, it's very scary to run a software that only one person knows in the world. But there is now their own pool. There's many of the big miners in the US, they're big enough to find 1 or 2, 3, 4, 5 blocks a day. And they pay 2% to Foundry just for a service that is like running a server in the cloud. Like, it's just like, I don't know. Like, that just doesn't make any sense to me. So yeah, if we can run them, I also really hope that the big ones can run them too, because yes, as soon as you have enough hash rate, you have full control over them. And then you don't have to hope again that somebody counts your shares correctly.
And just to point this out explicitly, for this crowd, I know a lot of people, a lot of Heatpunks don't want to mine to a big pool, so people want to, the people who want to solo mine, and probably the most common way to do that is to point at like solo CK pool or public pool or something like that. But the idea with HydraPool is we're trying to make it as easy as possible to run your own pool locally, which would be a great way to solo mine. That way you don't even have to rely on solo CK pool or something like that. You can have your own node connected to your own HydraPool, and your miners solo mining straight to that.
Load that on your Android phone that also has Mujina connected on it, that's connected to the hashboard. That seems like a good project. I'm in.
And your fireworks launcher.
Yeah, that's it, of course.
Yes,
And
definitely.
Libre Board is theoretically, I guess we haven't demonstrated this, but there's no reason you can't run a node and HydraPool and Mujina all on the one Libre Board controlling your hashboard. It's like completely self-contained on the Bitcoin network miner.
Yeah, all you need is power. So like, walk around in the world, and anywhere you see a power plug, you just...
So, I mean, one thing I want to clarify with HydraPool is the 256 Foundation, again, we don't sell products. We're not looking to be a pool operator. We do have a hosted instance of HydraPool. It's more for demonstration and learning and testing purposes and donation purposes in the event we hit another block with our pool, which would be awesome. You can see it at dash.256f.org.
And if you want to run your own pool, like we have now been doing this, we've learned a lot, and we're open sourcing all of this. Like we're working on Ansible scripts that configure your Linux in a way with all the TCP connections and all that stuff. But if you want to run your own pool, talk to us. Like I'm happy to share.
The
what we all
GitHub
learned.
repo has Docker containers.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, that's the reason we built HydraPool, is for you to run. We don't want to be the pool operator. We want you guys to be your own pool operators and figure out awesome new ways to make Bitcoin mining more decentralized.
Yeah, and if you have other ideas, right? I mean, what we just saw from, what was the pool?
Parasite.
Yes, like that's another super cool idea, that the person who finds the block gets 1 Bitcoin. That's not in there right now, but we could build it. So who knows, maybe we're gonna have a Heatpunk pool. So yeah,
So
it's there.
That's the entire stack that the 256 Foundation has built and open sourced. It's all on display upstairs with a demonstration rig that Ryan built. So we've got an Ember One hashboard and three Ember One hashboards. We got a Libre board on there. We got Mujina running, and it's pointed to dash.256f.org. So you can see the whole stack running there. This is just a first stepping stone in what we anticipate is going to be a long series of innovations that eventually lead to the same efficiencies and hash rate specs that you see with the larger manufacturers, and it's eventually going to be a no-brainer for all miners to turn to open source solutions that give them the control and the unique benefits and the economic benefits as well to mine using open source tools and turn away from these closed source proprietary tools.
And there's still time to join us, right? So if you work at Brains, Luxor, Vanish, Bitmain, WhatsMiner, like, join us. Like, there is still time. There will be, so.
Well,
but if you're not, we're coming for you.
Well, and next year, I want to see projects. Next year, I want to see projects that you have built using 256 Foundation blocks in the demo room. You know, something we had nothing to do with, but you used our designs as your starting point.
Right, there's a lot of builders here, right? And this is like, it is for building upon, which I think we can all agree is pretty dang cool. Like, this is what you want to build on.
And this shit is not hard, right? Like, I've never built a 6-layer PCB in my life before. I played like with 1-layer PCBs before. And the knowledge is all out there. Like, I probably watched like 20 hours of YouTube videos. My whole YouTube feed is full of like how to improve PCB designs. But you can use open source software to build that, and it's all out there. So I really encourage all of you. Like, it sounds scary to build hardware, and yes, the word hard is in there, because it is some way harder than software, but it's not called impossibleware. So I really encourage all of you. Like, if you have an idea, you can all do it. If you can figure out how to dismantle a Bitcoin miner and do for what it is, you can totally build the hardware yourself. So yeah.
Give these guys a round of applause. Thank you, everyone.